All right. What's up, everybody? I'm Tanner. This is the WAGMI Ventures podcast, and I'm here today with Austin Green, co-founder at Llama. Austin, what's up? How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Tanner. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, I'm super pumped. Llama is doing really cool work, and so I'm excited to get to kind of take a peek at all the cool stuff happening there. So, before we talk Llama in depth, I'd love to learn a little bit more about you and especially kind of your crypto journey. Maybe you could kind of walk us through, the evolution of that journey and how that led to the genesis of Llama.
Yeah, so my crypto journey started full-time in 2017. I started working as an engineer at Chainalysis, and Chainalysis was one of these rare companies that was in the crypto space. I was building a product that every crypto business needed. So everything from centralized exchanges to stablecoin issuers. And it worked across all the different blockchains, really, anywhere that people were transacting cryptocurrency and deploying smart contracts. And so I spent 4 years there, and I got to learn a lot about the industry and the parts of it that most interested me. And most of all, I got to learn what it's like to work at a high growth tech startup and what it means to have to, hire people really fast and experience hyper growth and expand a product line and all those sort of things. And it was a great experience because I knew aspirationally, I always wanted to be a founder one day and start my own company. And so it was a great foundation to be able to do that and leave at the end of 2021 and go full-time on Llama.
Super cool. Okay. So here, just by way of kind of kicking off what Llama is, could you tell us a little bit about what Llama is and what you seek to enable with what you're building?
Yeah, so Llama is a smart contract operations platform. We enable protocol teams, token issuers, and really any organization working with smart contracts to manage roles, permissions, and actions to help them run their protocol or token. And so think, things like a DeFi protocol or a rollup or a bridging protocol or a consumer application that's built on chain. Llama helps them do things like update protocol parameters or transfer funds or upgrade proxy contracts, really anything that involves privileged access.
Very cool. Okay. So I'm always curious, like, how did you, from the vantage point of Chainalysis, that's such an interesting place to get perspective on, I imagine, so many different parts of the industry. I'm curious, especially for Llama, like, what gave you the conviction that this problem space was enough to sort of warrant building an entirely new project around?
Yeah, so what first got me excited was at the end of 2020 and into early 2021 and beyond, we saw users at scale for the first time onboard directly on chain. And so what I mean by that is the primary crypto activity pre 2020 was happening on centralized exchanges. And there was very little, there were maybe some early DeFi protocols, but it wasn't until I would say DeFi summer that this became mainstream. And the idea of downloading a MetaMask and onboarding funds, ETH and stablecoins into your wallet, and then doing on-chain activity like buying an NFT or minting an NFT or interacting with a DeFi protocol or earning yield on stablecoins. For the first time, that vision became clear that this is something that users at scale are interested in doing. And at the same time, we saw the rise of these on-chain protocols. And so there were, everything from NFT communities to DeFi protocols were securing billions of dollars in token value, billions of dollars in their treasury, and had hundreds of thousands of token holders. And what I saw was that these were wholly unique structures, organizational structures. And so they kind of had elements in common with open source software foundations and internet native communities, and even in some aspects, traditional C corporations or LLCs. They earn revenue and They had contributors, but they were completely unique. They were like nothing we've ever seen before, and that excitement is what made me realize that there's a big opportunity to solve problems for this new category of customer. And that's how I ended up meeting my co-founder and leaving Chainalysis at the end of 2021 to go full-time on Llama.
Super interesting. Okay. So, one thing I'm always curious about, especially from this podcast, is hearing people's perspectives on progressive decentralization and what that really consists of. And I get the sense that just from what I've gathered about what Llama can do, I get the sense that Llama can contribute in a big way towards actually progressively decentralizing different protocols and different projects, as opposed to what I think is sometimes called like decentralization theater. Occasionally happens in the space, intentionally or unintentionally, right? And so I'm curious your perspective on progressive decentralization and how Llama fits into that conversation, basically.
Yeah, so this concept of progressive decentralization and governance minimization and all these themes around how do you go from a core team operated protocol to one fully managed by token holders has that design space has evolved a lot over the past few years, mainly because we've actually got to experiment with it in production. We've seen what has worked and what hasn't worked, and the benefits and the drawbacks of some of these different approaches. And the original thinking on this idea was that the most virtuous way to build a smart contract system is by making it fully immutable with no changes at all. And the problem we saw with this is that for really simple contracts, for something like, think something like wrapped ETH, where you can deposit some ETH and you can get your, wrapped ETH ERC20 token, or you could, burn it and unlock some ETH. If you're solving something that looks more like, almost like a utility or a tool, it's really easy just to, kind of have the spec and design it out and build it and deploy it and have it last for years without it needing any changes. Other than that, if you're looking to build something more complex and dynamic, then it's really tough in a frontier tech industry in ever changing world to be able to know everything ahead of time. And so we saw for a lot of protocols swing too hard almost in the other direction, where everything was upgradable, and we saw the rise of a lot of different proxy patterns. And where I think we're at today with tools like Llama is that there's something really exciting about the middle of kind of these two extremes. And what I mean by that is, for the first time with with building with smart contracts, you can enable patterns where you can maybe have an immutable core. And so the most important business logic of your protocol is immutable, and that can't change. But then you can add some dynamic elements. So maybe there's a fee switch that can be turned on and off, or maybe you're building a DeFi protocol and you have the ability to add or remove asset listings or update risk parameters for those asset listings. And rather than making things either fully upgradable or fully immutable, you take advantage of the unique properties of smart contracts to do things like, we're going to allow new assets to be listed, but we're only going to allow that with a 10-day time lock. And so that means we kind of get the best of both worlds. If you're a user who's uncomfortable with that change and the risk profile that introduces, then you have 10 days to eject and remove your assets from the protocol. And otherwise, you can leave things in. You can get to benefit from our team, our community, our stakeholders being able to update things as they go. And so that's how I think of the progressive decentralization question, where the idea isn't to kind of build towards a fully immutable protocol. It's to find the parts of your protocol that you can make immutable, find the parts that and that should be the core, and then on the edges allow yourself to be able to adapt and update. And over time, that responsibility of deciding things like turning on a fee switch or changing a protocol parameter should progressively go from the core developers to service providers, to token holders, to partners and other kind of broader interested parties in your protocol. And you can introduce, using platforms like Llama, you can introduce the ability to approve and veto from all these different parties. And so that's what gets me most excited. The idea that maybe you should have core developers be able to approve certain actions, but token holders should be able to veto them. Or maybe you have two tokens in your protocol. Maybe you're something like Lido, and for certain actions, LDO token holders should be able to approve them, but staked ETH holders should be able to veto. And that's what we're hoping to enable with Llama.
Super compelling vision. Okay, that makes a ton of sense. So one recurring question on this podcast that really comes out of a recurring curiosity I have is just that it's this notion of early challenges. And I think one of the reasons it's so interesting to me to talk about this is because I think the DNA of what an organization or a project becomes has a lot to do with the ways in which early challenges were tackled, how they were thought about, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm curious to put the question to you, what's like one or two early challenges in the life of Llama, and how have you and your team sort of solved for or thought about solving for those challenges?
Yeah, so the biggest challenge when building something new, and I don't think Llama is an exception here, is it's usually not in convincing, finding people who have the pain point, and it's not in convincing people who have the pain point that we have a better solution. It's finding the people, the early adopters who either experience the pain point deeply enough, or who just have a innate curiosity or desire to kind of use the most cutting edge tools, and proving out that the model works with them first. And so there's always going to be more conservative projects who, even if they recognize what you're building and recognize how it can benefit them, they're still just going to do what worked 3-4 years ago because they don't want to be the first to try something new. And so I'd say in terms of like what our team is focused on this year and what we're building with our existing customers today is we're almost thinking about them like design partners. And we're the idea is that we can engage in this positive sum win-win situation where we're able to kind of pioneer these interesting governance models that can be built with the Llama framework. They can use them to kind of notch wins and become more successful. And then that also helps us move into the more conservative part of the market. And so we've had some of these recent wins with some of our customers, and it's been really interesting to see that the same idea as we were talking to potential customers months ago about that now they're seeing someone else do it. They're more excited to try it themselves. And so I think that's the theme of rightfully so. Crypto is a lot of teams are more conservative and more hesitant to adopt new things. And the battle to fight for Llama is just to continually emphasize what can we enable, how can we remove inefficiencies, how can we increase security to win that early adopter part of the market, and then move into the more kind of conservative teams.
Love it. That makes a ton of sense. Okay, so I'd love to take a step back here, Austin, and maybe just ask you a couple questions about the crypto space more broadly, where I think the first question, given you've been in the space for quite some time, is how has crypto changed since you've been in the space? And then sort of related, like, what do you think we're getting right here in 2024? And maybe where do you think we could be doing things better?
Yeah, so I think in a lot of ways, the industry is very hard on itself. you kind of zoom out, you there has been a lot of wins notched in the past year, and the past couple years, really, where if you look at the applications that are getting used today, they're built on technologies that really it didn't exist. That they're all less than a year old, and so things like I sorry, let me let me start this one over.
Okay.
Let me just pause for silence. Yeah, so crypto's in an exciting place in 2024. A lot of the ingredients that are necessary to build consumer applications that really reach that 100 million user, billion user scale have finally come to fruition. So having things like being able to abstract away the experience of managing a seed phrase, and being able to have gas fees that are too cheap to meter because we have alternative data availability solutions and we have cheaper execution environments. The experience of on-ramping and off-ramping fiat into your wallet, all these things which are necessary to actually onboard a meaningful amount of users are all primitives that now exist, and they didn't exist a year ago or 2 years ago, and so that's really exciting to see. And I think a lot of these conversations I'm having now with creative people are finally, for the first time, they feel like they have the creative canvas to use the unique parts of crypto to do things like building with collectibles and minting assets, and all the great benefits of blockchains, composable DeFi protocols, but they actually can do it in a way where they can make a promise to users that your assets are going to be secure, and you're going to have a UX that is close enough to what Web2 is, that it's reasonable for you to onboard. And so in terms of the things that are going well, I would say that's what immediately comes to mind, is all the ingredients that are coming together to allow us to build smart contract based applications at true consumer scale. In terms of the things that I wish were happening faster is, there's just a lot of crypto is one of those industries where it's a highly experimental industry, and so it's almost like the lessons to learn the lessons, we have to go through the kind of these massive failures. It's almost like, in a lot of ways, we're speed running these financial experiments that we know in some ways are going to be likely to fail, but it's frustrating when they do, because it just kind of leaves that negative stain of reputation. And if you're someone who works in tech, and maybe you hear about crypto every few years, it's an unfortunate reality of the world that it's the bad news gets a lot more clicks than the good news. And so whenever you hear about it, you hear about something like FTX, which is an exchange counterparty risk problem, and a not your keys, not your coins problem that people in the industry have known about for a long time. It's something that has to, something like Terra, that has to do with unstable stablecoin minting mechanisms. And so the thing that's frustrating is when you see experiments like this that are still being tried, that have the potential to kind of blow up in this negative way. And so my hope is that with that people, as we start to begin the next bull cycle, that people learn on the lessons that happened in 2022 and keep that in mind, and are quicker to point out when an experiment just goes a little too far and is something that shouldn't be tried in production with real user money, but at the same time preserve that creative energy, and do engage in the experiments that can lead to more fruitful outcomes.
Yeah, I love those thoughts. I think that makes a ton of sense. So if I could ask you to maybe go back to the beginning of your crypto journey, I'm curious, from your more seasoned perspective now, I'm always curious, what would you want to impart to yourself that may be useful to kind of beginners to crypto or even beginners as founders in crypto? If there's folks launching new projects in crypto right now, what advice would you maybe have for yourself that could be beneficial to overhear?
Yeah, so I think one thing to realize that I've seen a lot of founders fall in this trap is the the desire to go and raise capital from VCs immediately. And what I mean by this, and why I think it's a trap, is that there are there are a lot of great things around raising venture capital. It does allow you to pay for things like audits and scale a team, but it also introduces a risk. And what that risk is that it's you when you raise VC money, you walk through this one way door, and you if you have the idea and that you have the vision and the end goal you're trying to reach, it's a great way to pour gas on that fire and get to that goal as fast as possible. But the problem I've seen some first time founders run into is that they do that, they raise the capital before they really have conviction in that idea, and it leads to this very stressful situation where you don't know if the thing you're working on can ever be a venture scale idea. You have money in the bank, so you kind of feel like the clock is ticking. And the antidote to being in that situation, which you don't want you're not going to come do your best work and think of your most creative ideas if you feel like you're working against the clock. Um, what I encourage founders to do, and in crypto, this is especially attainable, is seek grants first. And so there are plenty of ecosystems, whether it's the L1s or roll ups or kind of the different protocols themselves. There are plenty of grants programs. There are a lot of easy ways to attain capital, just enough to be able to start experimenting and start shipping and start kind of honing in on a direction you want to go in, so that you're ready when it's time, where you have the conviction and this is the thing you want to work on for the next 10 years, that then you have traction, so you have more kind of leverage in a fundraising conversation, but you also have a level of comfortability that that you're going to learn and things are going to change along the way, but that you're not going to be in this situation where you raise money and in 6 months later you learn new things about the idea that you originally had while you were building, and you really don't know what to do. You don't know if you should completely pivot. You don't know if you hired too big of a team and now the team's too big, and you can just avoid that whole mess of problems. And so that would be my biggest advice to first time founders is stay in that kind of pre funding phase as long as you can, and so that you're ready when the time comes, you're really confident and you have high conviction in the future you're working towards.
Yeah, I think that's actually terrific advice. Okay, so Austin, last question here for you. What is your team working on right now, and what's the best way for people to follow along on the journey?
Yeah, so right now our focus is on building the best smart contract operations platform possible. So making Llama the easiest way to deploy and manage your smart contracts in production. And whether you are a small team that just has a core team managing all your contracts, or you're an extremely large community with multiple tokens and many external service providers, we want to make Llama the home for you. To stay updated on what we're building, you can follow us on X. I'm at Austin Green on X, and our company account is just at Llama. And so feel free to follow us there. DM me or DM the company if you want to learn more. And we look forward to working with anyone. Really, Llama is one of those projects that no matter what stage you're at or no matter what sector of crypto you're building in, we probably have something for you. And so look forward to hearing from you.
Love it. Austin, thank you so much for coming on the show. Super interesting work you guys are doing. And I'm really excited myself to kind of follow along on the journey and keep up to date. So have a great rest of your week here and take care.
Thank you, Tanner. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Bye-bye.